Greetings, you're listening to the Cold Call Lawcast, the Minnesota Law School podcast featuring students from the University of Minnesota Law School, the University of St. Thomas School of Law, and the Mitchell-Hamline School of Law. Welcome everybody to the Cold Call Lawcast. I'm Mitch, a law student from the University of St. Thomas School of Law. With me are my co-hosts Hannah from the University of Minnesota Law School.
Hi.
Anthony from the Mitchell-Hamline School of Law.
Hello.
And Abby from the University of Minnesota Law School.
Hello.
On today's podcast, we'll be talking about our mental health as law students. With us today is Emily Weber from the University of St. Thomas School of Law.
Hello.
And Cristina Cruz from the University of Minnesota Law School.
Hello.
Welcome, you guys. So, Cristina, I wanted to start with you. You are a 2L at the U of M.
Yeah, now that I paid for my books, I'm a 2L.
Yes, none of that rising junk that we keep
I
saying.
have risen.
You've already risen. Yes.
Now you're falling too well.
Is that the next
Yeah.
word? Falling too
I don't think that happens till spring.
I was going to say to be continued.
So, in terms of going to law school, why did you choose the University of Minnesota? Kind of, what was your process, and why did you decide on coming to the U of M for your law school experience?
Yeah, so when I took about 2.5 years off in between undergrad and law school. I did social work. I worked at a family visitation center, so kind of domestic violence social work. And I worked as a court interpreter for a while. And then I took a year off and worked as a teacher in Spain and just kind of had fun, which was...
That's cool.
Yeah.
How long were you in Spain for?
9 months.
Wow.
Yeah. My dad's from Spain, so it was kind of like going to really experience living there and the culture and being near my family for an extended period of time. But sort of beyond the law school spectrum, I kind of knew when I came back I had to have something to do. And I had enjoyed doing social work and I enjoyed court interpreting, but I felt like I was meeting my clients in a moment where their trauma had already occurred, and I was just sort of trying to put a Band-Aid on it to mitigate it as much as I could. And so I started thinking about a profession that could catch them before that happened, or, during that situation to help them figure that out before it got to the point where I was just sort of trying to put a Band-Aid on it. And maybe law at times is putting a Band-Aid on a problem, but a little bit less maybe. And I also wanted something that was a little more intellectual for myself. So in terms of law school application, my parents are both professors. They're really into numbers and rankings and, the whole academic sort of rat race, I would say. I hope they don't listen to this. So they would suggest schools to me that had the numbers that they thought, would help me out and would end up in a good profession. And I would look at them and look at the clinic offerings and see if they aligned with what I liked, look at some of the course offerings, maybe even some of the professors, and sort of look and see. I think you can tell what a school's political leaning or, what they want to invest their money and time in. And so I settled on a few schools that I liked. I also wanted to be in a colder climate. My mom's from the Midwest, so...
Wait. You actually want to be in a colder climate.
Yeah, I might have overdone it a little bit. But yeah, I'm from Delaware, so...
Okay, Delaware, you can get cold weather there. Okay.
Yeah, it's chilly. But I was done living in Delaware, so I wanted maybe a little bit of a bigger city. So the University of Minnesota kind of came across my path from those lists of schools that my parents sent me, and I really liked it. I liked the offerings. I liked the clinics that they had, the opportunities available, and I liked the Binger Center for New Americans because it really just showed a commitment to immigration law and to working with the Minnesota community, as I later found out that this community is just built on immigrants a lot. I mean, back and now different types of immigrants, but yeah, so I came and visited. I loved the environment. They kind of tote this sort of no jerk thing where they're not into gunners and they're not into people trying to one up each other, and that they're more of a collaborative community. And that coupled with the scholarship offer, because that's really important, especially for somebody that wants to do public interest, because I'm not going to be making enough money to pay $120,000 worth of student loans probably ever, kind of just led me to choose the University of Minnesota.
Okay. And so what has kind of been the best parts of being at the U of M Law that you've seen? What have you really enjoyed about being here?
So I love meeting new people and all different types of people. I don't know if I thought maybe that there was a cookie cutter law student and it wasn't me. But when I started school and started meeting my cohort, I realized that there definitely wasn't a cookie cutter law student, and that I fit in between, people who can't make eye contact or talk to anybody, and then people that are like vivacious, go-getters who dress beautifully and perfectly every single day. So there's just this amazing range of humans that all want to do the same thing. And it was lovely to see sort of that mix and to meet people and to start having these really cool conversations that I maybe wasn't having before, sort of thinking about things in a different way. And the intellectual environment, being out of school for a few years, although it was relaxing, I kind of missed some of that intellectual richness and stimulation, and having the opportunity to go to lunchtime talks where people were talking about different subjects was really cool. So that's what I enjoyed about my first year.
Okay.
I would just like to record the fact that when you were talking about weirdos who can't look people in the eye, Mitch pointed at me
I
and
don't
laughed.
know what you're talking about, Hannah. I don't know what you're
Just
talking
recording
about.
for posterity. Okay.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I think, so you talked about how, it's not that cutthroat approach at the U of M that I think a lot of us hear, at, the Harvards or the Yales or something like that.
Or that movie, The Paper Chase. I saw that in undergrad in my, intro to law course, and I was like, oh, no.
Where did that one take place at?
I think Harvard.
Yeah.
Is that Harvard?
It's
Yeah.
Harvard. And the main character is from Minnesota.
Oh, so we watched Legally Blonde in my orientation class, and
So
they had it very cutthroat in there as well.
That's true.
But I think, I don't know, is it maybe just all of Minnesota law schools that are kind of not as cutthroat as the other ones? Is it just kind of the culture of Minnesota? I mean, what's it like at Mitchell Hamlin, would you say, Anthony?
Oh, I mean, rankings, of course, are, the number one priority for some students if you want to live that way. But, basically, from my perspective, it's everyone who's banding together trying to support each other and get through law school as best as they can. And wherever you end up, you end up. I mean, obviously, you're going to find those people who want to be better. And you see those people right away in law school. The people who are always talking, the people who are overly stressed out about school. I mean, everyone's stressed out about school, but they really make a big deal out of things. But for the most part, it's always a pretty tight-knit community of people just trying to get by together.
Right.
Freaking out together.
Yeah.
And so, Emily, is that kind of what you're seeing at St. Thomas as well?
Maybe for one or two students, but for the most part, our community is really strong and very supportive, and definitely not cutthroat. You're not trying to knock each other down. You're not really trying to lift yourself up above the crowd. You just kind of band together and tuck your head down and get through it.
And Abby, when you were applying to law schools, did any of this kind of set into your mind, or were you like, no, I could do that cutthroat stuff? Or
No, I'm not super cutthroat. So I think it did have an impact because, I don't know, I toured, Madison even seemed more cutthroat. It was a different sort of approach to the whole aspect of law school. People were already, when I toured, trying to, make social connections and build, I don't know, their fortress of... their network.
People.
Yeah. But I feel like
Spinning the web.
that does happen here too, but the focus is less so.
Okay. And so, Cristina, we talked about kind of the best parts that you liked. What were some of the challenges that you faced in your first year at the U of M?
So although the U of M definitely is a more sort of collaborative law school, and it's not the type of law school where people will rip pages out of books. from the library. I don't know if that really happens or if that's like an urban legend, but
They might if they weren't online now. That's
yeah, that's true.
We were literally talking about that in my St. Thomas orientation about the U of M. We're like, oh, it's kind of scary over there. So we didn't know if that was like, I didn't know if that was like actually true or if a rumor
Oh,
or.
yeah, be scared of us. Be scared.
Well, I think
I
so.
am scared. I'm scared of Hannah specifically.
Specifically.
But
We're all a
that's
little
maybe.
scared of Hannah.
Yeah.
Me too, guys.
It's a good way to be, I guess. Yeah, no, what I was saying. So even though it is more of a collaborative, I guess, environment, it's still, a T20 law school. So it still cares about its rankings. And as much as it tries to, instead of publishing a list of students by rank, number 1 through whatever, we have quartiles, but we still have quartiles. And everything is still curved because it's still law school and it's still the worst in some aspects. So I think for me, what was challenging was kind of just adjusting to an entirely different structure where, I was a sociology, comparative literature, Spanish major in undergrad. And those classrooms are classrooms where you are free to give your opinion and to speak and to sort of have like a class discussion. And that's not what law school is really like. And that's not how you are supposed to learn in law school. So I had a really hard time adjusting to how you are supposed to learn in law school, which is you sit down in the library for 700 hours a day. And
It's a lot of
it's
hours.
a lot
in
of
a day.
hours.
That's a lot of hours in a day.
It's a time warp. And you just read and you highlight, and God, I hope that you got the concept that you were supposed to get from that case, because if you didn't, you're going to struggle. And for me, it was a struggle. And I had a great study group and I had a great support system, but I just realized that I wasn't catching what they were catching, and I wasn't keeping up with them, even though I was in the same room with them, reading the same things, discussing the same things, studying just as hard. My partner was on the East Coast, so I wasn't even distracted by my partner being around or anything like that. So I just felt like I was falling behind. My in-class participation, my professors, were saying, oh, you seem like you're getting things, you seem like you're doing fine, but I didn't feel like I was getting things in the first semester once the grades dropped, and all of my grades were the same, more or less, not great grade. And it's not like, oh, I'm used to getting A's, and so all of my grades weren't A's. It was not that. It was all of my grades are, below average, and what am I doing wrong? And why are all of them the same, as opposed to, oh, you didn't understand contracts. Oh, you didn't understand civil procedure. No, you were not on level for any of these classes. And I went out for drinks with some friends, some classmates that night. And, once everybody had a couple libations, people were talking about grades, and I heard some people talking about how well they'd done. And I had to leave the bar because I couldn't handle it. It was too much for me. I had to go home in a Lyft, and it wasn't a great night. And after that, a friend of mine suggested, my brother has attention deficit disorder, and I think you exhibit some of the symptoms that he exhibits. So maybe it would be a good idea to seek some help and to talk to a therapist about that and see if maybe that's something that they can, help you figure out. And, I was 25 at the time. You're 25. And I remember, in middle school having some issues, but I also went to a Montessori school where it was really easy to get away with learning,
Right.
with having some sort of...
You must have also done fairly well in undergrad as well.
Yeah, I did well in undergrad, but like I said, I took a lot of classes that were sort of discussion-based as opposed to sort of a more rote. So I think I got away with it in undergrad, and I did do fairly well. But I think I got away with being able to not read and to sound intellectual in my discussions and do well, and so, build my understanding of things in different ways that law school doesn't allow you to build understanding. But I don't know if you want me to continue.
Yeah,
going
I
into
mean,
it.
so how did you handle